Hey, welcome to Coach B's training and peer support channel for information, tips, um, peer support information, at least as far as Washington State goes. This video is kind of an intro video. Like, I want to talk about what peer support actually is, but not from just my words. Actually, SAMHSA has a core competencies for peer support workers in behavioral health services document. And I'm going to read that. SAMHSA stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. So a lot of funding comes from SAMHSA, a lot of information about recovery, about substance use, about mental health, a lot of definitions. There's national model standards that SAMHSA puts out as well. And so these are just some of the things that I want to use this channel for. I'm a DBHR, which is a Department of Behavioral Health approved state trainer. So I train certified peer counseling as part of my job for a branch of a nonprofit organization. I'm also a CCAR, Connecticut Community Addiction and Recovery Coach Professional, which I'm also a facilitator of all of CCAR's curriculum, and that is recovery coaches. They're similar, but there is a difference. And in another video, I'll break down what recovery coach is and the process, at least in regards to CCAR. So this video is specifically going to be about, the peer support, like what it is, where it's going. Next video, I'll be talking about the SB Bill 5555 and what that means for the changes in peer support, reading directly from Healthcare Authority documents. So if you don't have access to these or you can't seem to find them and you have all these questions about what's happening with peer support in Washington State and what it means after the new curriculum comes out and the new credentialing, I'll be reading that bullet point for bullet point. I'll knock it all down in another video. So this here is core competencies, right, put out by SAMHSA. And it says in 2015, SAMHSA led an effort to identify the critical knowledge, skills, and abilities leading to core competencies needed by someone who provides peer support services to people with or in recovery from a mental health or substance use condition. SAMHSA, via its Bringing Recovery Supports to Scale Technical Assistance Center Strategy, BRSSTACS, right, project, convened diverse stakeholders from the mental health consumer and substance use disorder recovery movements to achieve this goal. SAMHSA, in conjunction with subject matter experts, conducted research to identify core competencies for peer workers in behavioral health. SAMHSA later posted the draft competencies developed with these stakeholders online for comment. This additional input helped refine the core competencies, and this document represents the final product of that process. As our understanding of peer support grows and the context in which peer recovery support services are provided evolve, the core competencies must evolve over time. Therefore, updates to these competencies may occur periodically in the future. I will be looking for those for this channel. This is kind of what this channel is for. Information dissemination so that we are as close to on the same page as we possibly can be, especially in our respective states. Core competencies are intended to apply to all forms of peer support to people living with or in recovery from mental health and or substance use conditions and delivered by or to adults, young adults, family members, and youth. The competencies may also apply to other forms of peer support provided by other roles known as peer specialists, recovery coaches, parent support providers, or youth specialists. There are not a complete set of competencies for every context in which peer workers provide services and support. They can serve as the foundation upon which additional competencies for specific settings that practice peer support and or for specific groups could be developed in the future. For example, it may be helpful to identify additional competencies beyond those identified here that may be required to provide peer support services in specific settings such as clinical, school, or correctional settings. Similarly, there may be a need to identify additional core competencies needed to provide peer support services to specific groups, such as families, veterans, people in medication-assisted recovery from an SUD, senior citizens, or members of specific ethnic, racial, or gender orientation groups. So background, what is a peer worker? The role of the peer support worker has been identified as offering and receiving help based on shared understanding, respect, and mutual empowerment between people in similar situations. Peer support has been described as a system of giving and receiving help, based on key principles that include shared responsibility and mutual agreement of what is helpful. Peer support workers engage in a wide range of activities, including advocacy, linkage to resources, sharing of experience, community and relationship building, group facilitation, skill building, mentoring, goal setting, and more. They may also plan and develop groups, services, or activities, supervise other peer workers, provide training, gather information on resources, administer programs or agencies, educate the public and policymakers, and work to raise awareness. As mentioned previously, the development of additional core competencies may be needed to guide the provision of peer support services to specific groups who also share common experiences, such as family members. The shared experience of being in recovery from a mental health or substance use disorder, or being a family member of a person with a behavioral health condition, is the foundation on which the peer recovery support relationship is built in the behavioral health area. What is recovery? SAMHSA developed the following working definition of recovery by engaging key stakeholders in the mental health consumer and substance use disorder recovery communities. Recovery is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live self-directed lives, and strive to reach their full potential. Throughout the competencies, the term recovery refers to this definition. This definition does not describe recovery as an end state, but rather as a process. Complete symptom remission is neither a prerequisite of recovery nor a necessary outcome of the process. According to the SAMHSA working definition of recovery, recovery can have many pathways that may include professional clinical treatment, use of medications, support from families and in schools, faith-based approaches, peer support, and other approaches. So SAMHSA has identified four major dimensions that support a life in recovery. One, health, learning to overcome, manage, or more successfully live with the symptoms and making healthy choices that support one's physical and emotional well-being. Two, home, a stable and safe place to live. Three, purpose, meaningful daily activities such as job, school, volunteer work, or creative endeavors, and increase ability to lead a self-directed life and meaningful engagement in society. And four, community, relationships and social networks that provide support, friendship, love, and hope. Peer workers help people in all of these domains. So, what are core competencies? Core competencies are the capacity to easily perform a role or function. They are often described as clusters of the knowledge, skills, and attitudes a person needs to have in order to successfully perform a role or job, or as the ability to integrate the necessary knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Training, mentoring, and supervision can help develop the competencies needed to perform a role of a job. This will be the first integrated guidance on competencies for peer workers with mental health and substance use lived experience. Why do we need to identify core competencies for peer workers? Peer workers and peer recovery support services have become increasingly central to people's efforts to live with or recover from mental health and substance use disorders. Community-based organizations led by people who have lived experience of mental health conditions and or who are in recovery from substance use disorders are playing a growing role in helping people find recovery in the community. Both the mental health consumer and the substance use disorder recovery communities have recognized the need for core competencies, and both communities actively participated in the development of these peer recovery support work competencies. So, potential uses of core competencies. Core competencies have the potential to guide delivery and promote best practices in peer support. They can be used to inform peer training programs, assist in developing standards for certification, and inform job descriptions. Supervisors will be able to use competencies to appraise peer workers' job performance, and peers will be able to assess their own work performance and set goals for continued development of these competencies. Core competencies are not intended to create a barrier for people wishing to enter the peer workforce. Rather, they are intended to provide guidance for the development of initial and ongoing training designed to support peer workers' entry into this important work and continued skill development. Core competencies, principles, and values. Core competencies for peer workers reflect certain foundational principles identified by members of the mental health, consumer, and substance use disorder recovery communities. These are recovery oriented. Peer workers hold out hope to those they serve, partnering with them to envision and achieve a meaningful and purposeful life. Peer workers help those they serve identify and build on strengths and empower them to choose for themselves, recognizing that there are multiple pathways to recovery. Second, person centered. Peer recovery support services are always directed by the person participating in services. Peer recovery support is personalized to align with the specific hopes, goals, and preferences of the individual being served and to respond to specific needs the individual has identified to the peer worker. Voluntary. Peer workers are partners or consultants to those they serve. They do not dictate the types of services provided or the elements of recovery plans that will guide their work with peers. Participation in peer recovery support services is always contingent on peer choice. It's always voluntary. To be a peer, to be served by a peer, it's always, always voluntary. Next, relationship focused. The relationship between the peer worker and the peer is the foundation on which peer recovery support services and support are provided. The relationship between the peer worker and peer is respectful, trusting, empathetic, collaborative, and mutual. We have a saying in the trainings, we say, as peer workers, we are friendly, not friends. And lastly, trauma informed. Peer recovery support utilizes a strength-based framework that emphasizes physical, psychological, and emotional safety and creates opportunities for survivors to rebuild a sense of control and empowerment. There's so much on trauma informed that I implore you to Google it, find webinars. Uh, in a nutshell, the basis, one of the basis quotes that we use in training when it comes to trauma informed is changing a simple language of what's wrong with you to what happened. Okay, next page on this document is core competencies for peer workers and behavioral health services. Category 1 engages peers in collaborative and caring relationships. This category of competencies emphasize peer workers' ability to initiate and develop ongoing relationships with people who have behavioral health condition and or family members. These competencies include interpersonal skills, knowledge about recovery from behavioral health conditions, and attitudes consistent with the recovery orientation. 1. Initiates contact with peers. 2. Listens to peers with careful attention to the content and the motion being communicated. 3. Reaches out to engage peers across the whole continuum of the recovery process. 4. Demonstrates genuine acceptance and respect. 5. Demonstrates understanding of peers' experiences and feelings. Category 2. Provides support. The competencies in this category are critical for the peer worker to be able to provide the mutual support people living with behavioral health conditions may want. 1. Validates peers' experiences and feelings. 2. Encourages the exploration and pursuit of community roles. 3. Conveys hope to peers about their own recovery. 4. celebrates peers' efforts and accomplishments. 5. Provides concrete assistance to help peers accomplish tasks and goals. Category 3. Shares lived experiences of recovery. These competencies are unique to peer support, as most roles in behavioral health services do not emphasize or even prohibit the sharing of lived experiences. Peer workers need to be skillful in telling their recovery stories and using their lived experiences as a way of inspiring and supporting a person living with behavioral health conditions. Family peer support workers likewise share their personal experiences of self care and supporting a family member who is living with behavioral health conditions. One relates their own recovery stories and, with permission, the recovery stories of others to inspire hope. Discusses ongoing personal efforts to enhance health, wellness, and recovery. 3. Recognizes when to share experiences and when to listen. 4. Describes personal recovery practices and helps peers discover recovery practices that work for them. Category 4 is personalizes peer support. These competencies help peer workers to tailor or individualize their support services provided to and with a peer. By personalizing peer support, the peer worker operationalizes the notion that there are multiple pathways to recovery. 1. Understands his or her own personal values and culture and how they may contribute these biases, judgments, and beliefs. 2. Appreciates and respects the cultural and spiritual beliefs and practices of peers and their families. 3. Recognizes and responds to the complexities and uniqueness of each peer's process of recovery. And 4. Tailors services and support to meet the preferences and unique needs of peers and their families. Category 5 supports recovery planning. These competencies enable peer workers to support other peers to take charge of their lives. Recovery often leads people to want to make changes in their lives. Recovery planning assists people to set and accomplish goals related to home, work, community, and health. 1. Assists and supports peers to set goals to dream of future possibilities. 2. Proposes strategies to help a peer accomplish tasks or goals. 3. Supports peers to use decision-making strategies when choosing services and supports. 4. Helps peers to function as a member of their treatment/recovery support team. 5. Researches and identifies credible information and options for various resources. Category 6 talks about links to resources, services, and supports. These competencies assist peer workers to help other peers acquire the resources, services, and supports they need to enhance their recovery. Peer workers apply these competencies to assist other peers to link to resources or services both within behavioral health settings and in the community. It is critical that peer workers have knowledge of resources within their communities as well as online resources. 1. Develops and maintains up-to-date information about community resources and services. 2. Assists peers to navigate, investigate, select, and use needed and desired resources and services. 3. Helps peers to find and use health services and supports. 4. Accompanies peers to community activities and appointments when requested. 5. Participates in community activities with peers when requested. Now, Category 7 provides information about skills related to health, wellness, and recovery. These competencies describe how peer workers coach, model, provide information about skills that enhance recovery. These competencies recognize that peer workers have knowledge, skills, and experience to offer others in recovery, and that the recovery process often involves learning and growth. 1. Educates peers about health, wellness, recovery, and recovery supports. 2. Participates with peers in discovery or co-learning to enhance recovery experiences. 3. Coaches peers about how to access treatment and services and navigate systems of care. 4. Coaches peers in desired skills and strategies. 5. Educates family members and other supportive individuals about recovery and recovery supports. 6. Uses approaches that match the preferences and needs of the peers. Category 8. Helps peers to manage crisis. These competencies assist peer workers to identify potential risk and to use procedures that reduce risk to peers and others. Peer workers may have to manage situations in which there is intense distress and work to ensure the safety and well-being of themselves and other peers. 1. Recognizes signs of distress and threats to safety among peers and in their environments. 2. Provides reassurance to peers in distress. 3. Strives to create safe spaces when meeting with peers. And 4. Takes actions to address distress or a crisis by using knowledge of local resources, treatment, services, and support preferences of the peers. 5. Assists peers in developing advanced directives and other crisis prevention tools. Category 9. Values communication. These competencies provide guidance on how peer workers interact verbally and in written with colleagues and others. These competencies suggest language and processes used to communicate and reflect the value of respect. 1. Uses respectful, person-centered, recovery-oriented language in written and verbal interactions with peers, family members, community members, and others. 2. Uses active listening skills. 3. Clarifies their understanding of information when in doubt of the meaning. 4. Conveys their point of view when working with colleagues. 5. Documents information as required by program policies and procedures. 6. Follow laws and rules concerning confidentiality and respects others' rights for privacy. Category 10. Supports collaboration and teamwork. These competencies provide direction on how peer workers can develop and maintain effective relationships with colleagues and others to enhance the peer support provided. These competencies involve not only interpersonal skills, but also organizational skills. 1. Works together with other colleagues to enhance the provision of services and supports. 2. Assertively engages providers in mental health services, addiction services, and physical medicine to meet the needs of peers. 3. Coordinates efforts with healthcare providers to enhance the health and wellness of peers. 4. Coordinates efforts with peers' family members and other natural supports. 5. Partners with community members and organizations to strengthen opportunities for peers. 6. Strives to resolve conflicts in relationships with peers and others in their support network. Category 11. Promotes leadership and advocacy. These competencies describe actions that peer workers use to provide leadership within behavioral health programs to advance a recovery-oriented mission of services. They also guide peer workers on how to advocate for the legal and human rights of other peers. 1. Uses knowledge of relevant rights and laws, ADA, HIPAA, Olmstead, etc., to ensure that peers' rights are respected. 2. Advocates for the needs and desires of peers in treatment team meetings, community service, living situations, and with family. 3. Uses knowledge of legal resources and advocacy organization to build an advocacy plan. 4. Participates in efforts to eliminate prejudice and discrimination of people who have behavioral health conditions and their families. 5. Educates colleagues about the process of recovery and the use of recovery support services. 6. Actively participates in efforts to improve the organization. 7. Maintains a positive reputation in peer and professional communities. Category 11 promotes growth and development. These competencies describe how peer workers become more reflective and competent in their practice. The competencies recommend specific actions that may serve to increase peer workers' success and satisfaction in their current roles and contribute to career advancement. 1. Recognizing the limits of their knowledge and seeks assistance from others when needed. 2. Uses supervision, mentoring, reflection, effectively by monitoring self and relationships, preparing for meetings, and engaging in problem solving strategies with supervisor, a mentor, or peer. 3. Reflects and examines own personal motivations, judgments, and feelings that may be activated by the peer work, recognizing signs of distress and knowing when to seek support. 4. Seeks opportunities to increase knowledge and skills of peer support. So that there is the core competencies for peer workers in behavioral health services, written verbatim, and that is put out by SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. So there are more than obviously one roles as it talks about in this document. Peer support shows up in our communities in all kinds of spaces. Most recently, peer support has went into the communities, into barbershops. Peer supporters in mental health settings, recovery settings, and all kinds of other aspects of the behavioral health. Now, in Washington State, a bill passed, SB 5555, which is changing the trajectory of peer support, where up until this point, we were known as certified peer counselors with a 40-hour training and a prerequisite, an application, because in order to be a peer support worker, you have to identify someone with lived experience and at least 12 months in recovery from substance use, mental health, uh, reentry, right, and or family members of those same individuals experiencing those things, where you've advocated and supported them in navigating systems of care. So the difference between a peer supporter and a recovery coach, at least in regards to CCAR, is you don't have to identify as somebody with lived experience with substance use to take a training and become a recovery coach. That's one of the main differences. Recovery coaches are SUD specific. They don't really lean into the mental health aspect of peer support. And so, for that reason, I believe that's why it's not billable to Medicaid. However, the new role of peer support and credentialing in Washington State is going to be called Certified Peer Specialist. And the legislating mandated that the curriculum double, so from a 40-hour training to an 80-hour training. And in another video, I will read what the new requirements are verbatim per the latest up-to-date document put out by the Healthcare Authority. In conclusion of this particular video, I would just like to share a bit of my personal experience from the age of 12 all the way until just a few short years ago. I was navigating judicial entanglements. I was gang impacted. I lived in anger. I didn't believe that I was capable of doing anything other than what I was doing that kept me in the revolving doors of the judicial system. I did the entire tour from juveniles to work releases to state penitentiaries, and then all the way up to federal halfway houses and a federal indictment, a federal sentence, federal halfway house. And it was during my stay at the federal halfway house that I was introduced to peer support. First through the Recovery Coach Academy put on by CCAR, through a local nonprofit. These trainings are free. And it was right in alignment with things I had already been feeling. Peer support, it didn't just change my life, it gave me life. It gave me purpose. So the things that I do now, the credentials that I hold as a state trainer, as a certified peer specialist, as a NAMA certified anger management specialist, a positive Indian parenting instructor, I've done coach approach, um, and I'm in the field regularly, right? I work for currently a branch of a nonprofit organization that takes certified peer counseling training into prisons in DLC in Washington State, the only actual branch of training organizations that are doing this right now. And we've successfully managed to certify over 600 individuals through over 24 trainings that have been conducted inside of prisons, inside of DLC. I could not have asked for a better role for me in my life. It's everything that makes me feel that I'm living with purpose, living intentional, the peer support values that I not only train all the time, Every time I train them, I'm hearing them again. I apply them. I embody them. I am peer. That is my identity. I'm a father. I'm a husband. You know, I'm peer. So a lot of times I don't feel like I have a job because I'm really doing something that I love. And this channel is to create a space for information dissemination. A lot of people don't know where these documents land or, you know, how to go out and find them. Somebody else had said in a Facebook post that there's a lot of peer support workers and old heads in the field that don't use social media. So a lot of times us posting about these different things, they're not getting the memo. So I wanted to create this YouTube channel for a space about peer support, about recovery, what those roles look like. So stay tuned. Again, the next video I post will be about the changes in peer support from certified peer counselor to certified peer specialist, and I will read verbatim the healthcare authority documents that outlines what that means, including definitions, um, background of it, why the bill was passed, maybe, and just what it looks like moving forward. What steps people have to take that are certified peer counselors. Are they going to have to move into the CPS role? Yes, and what that looks like. So I'll be reading all of that on the next video. So look for that to come up pretty soon. The documents are in front of me. The third video, I'll be going into peer support training and trainer requirements. So, how do you become a peer support specialist trainer? What are the requirements? How do you become a mentor in Washington State per healthcare authority requirements? I'll be reading that on the third video that I drop. So, like, subscribe, and really just share this with people in the field that want this type of knowledge, right? I'll go to a healthcare authority, I'll pull documents, I'll print them, and I'll read them here. Also, this is going to be a place for trainers and facilitators to get some tips. Josh Smith and there's some other trainers I work really closely with um, that I hope to entice to get involved in creating role plays and situations and scenarios about best practices, some of the activities that we use in these trainings, and um, how we use those activities, right? Like facilitation of activities is really important when it comes to peer role training and peer support training, especially in light of the fact that the peer support training is going to increase from 40 hours to 80 hours, right? And so facilitators and trainers are going to be doing double the amount of work, and it's going to be a hybrid level training where part of it is in person and part of it is virtual, and understanding how to best provide peer support while training, adherent to the values of peer support and what that looks like in the future. Um, I just want to create a space for that, and so that's the whole idea and philosophy behind the Coach B training and peer support knowledge channel. So tap in. Be blessed, y'all.